almost Shabbat Shalom. So tonight is Shabbat, and I wanted to come on and talk about the current Torah Parsha. For this Shabbat, we read Bereshit, which is the very first Parsha of the Torah. And a couple of days ago, for Simchat Torah, which is the ending of the Torah, we read HaBracha. So I didn't make the Parsha in time, this Parsha video explaining HaBracha in time. So hopefully you all did your own research, read the Parsha, or heard it, or celebrated Simchat Torah in your own way, however you did. So we don't actually read the last Torah portion, HaBracha, on Shabbat. We read it on Simchat Torah, and sometimes that falls on Shabbat, but this year it did not. And HaBracha was the story, and I mentioned this in last week's video. I did touch on it a little bit. HaBracha is the story at the very end of the Torah where Moses dies at 120. And he gives the blessing for each of the tribes of Israel, just like generations ago when the blessing was given to each of the 12 sons. So there's sort of a reflection happening there with that. But mainly, what I wanted to talk about today, and it's kind of hinted at in the way that I wrote the title here with the two Parshas, is how we're ending and beginning the Torah all over again quickly. There's no end and then we wait a long time, or end and then it's just over. There's end and then immediately begin again. So we just read HaBracha, the final portion on Simchat Torah, and now we go right into Bereshit, the beginning of creation, Genesis, all over again. And I did mention this briefly last week as well, that, fun fact, the first letter of the Torah is a bet, or vet, so they're basically one letter. And the last letter of the Torah is a lamed. So when you take the last and make it the first, and the first and make it the last, you switch them around, it makes the word lev, which is heart. So when you end the Torah and immediately begin again, you connect the heartbeat. You keep the heart beating. You keep life going. You keep love going. You keep light going. It's a circle. It's a cycle. And so this is also why on Simchat Torah we dance in circles. And you'll often see this in different cultural dances where everybody will dance in a circle. And it's just so obvious what's being done there is that we're dancing to represent the circle of life, the continuous, eternal circle of life. So that's what we're doing with the Torah. We're ending and beginning again. So if you didn't read HaBracha, I encourage you to read it. Do a little research. The title and how you spell it is in the name of this video. And you can go as deep as you want to go. And we read the Torah every year. We just keep reading it every Shabbat, and it always goes deeper. The same stories always go deeper. So what can you get out of HaBracha this year? And how is this time of year and the Torah stories we're reading reflecting what's going on in your life? What endings are happening in a big way right now? What beginnings are just starting, are just opening up for you right now? Also with Bereshit, the Genesis, beginning of creation story that we're reading for this Shabbos, there's a lot to go deep with that as well. Again, every year you can go deeper. And something that stuck out in my mind this morning in Torah study was the question that Rabbi asked in Torah study a couple years ago, did Eve need to eat the apple? So that's what I've been meditating on this morning. And that's one of my favorite meditations on Parshat Bereshit. Did Eve need to eat the apple? Of course. The story is metaphorical. It's written exactly how it is for all the reasons. It's very intentional. And she did need to eat that apple because mistakes are inevitable. The rise is written in the fall. There is the Hermetic law. All energies have its opposite hidden within. Every force has an opposite and equal reaction. And so in the fall, in the downfall, is written the uprise. If we didn't have the fall, we wouldn't have the rise. And that's the hidden key. Yes, she needed to eat from the apple, or we wouldn't have the whole rest of the story. That was just the beginning. We're in Genesis, Bereshit, eating the apple. It's just the beginning, the tip of the iceberg, right? In order to come into this reality, this earthly, material reality, and come into this world of multiplicity, yes, we needed to eat that apple. Or we'd have no knowing of this world. We'd have no conception of this world. We choose to eat that apple with our free will. We choose to come to this world. We choose to forget where we came from so that we can remember stronger than ever before who we are and where we came from. Every time we fall, we rise higher. So that's what I like to think about with Bereshit. My meditations at this time of year when we're reading Genesis is all about, why did I come here? Let me remember why I came here. Let me remember why I choose to be this fallen angel, why I choose to come to this earth. Everything's already perfect in the spiritual dimension. In the world of oneness, everything is just perfect. Everything already exists in perfect harmony. But that's not why we're here. We're here to come into this world of fragmentation so that we can bring the pieces back together into wholeness in a stronger way than ever before. We're here to access opportunities to create more light, because without the challenge, there's no transcendence. Without the challenge, there's no chariot, right? Just like in the Torah, card 6 to card 7, challenge to chariot. If we don't have the challenge, there's nothing to rise above. There's nothing to transcend. There's nothing to learn. So we come here to learn and we come here to grow. So that's a big part of my meditation this time of year. And the other part is, okay, how can I renew that promise? How can I renew that vow of my mission, what I came here to do, who I came here to be? How can I do and be that in a bigger, more powerful, more profound way than ever before? And I like to reflect on the previous year and go, okay, what am I bringing into this new one? What have I learned? How can I separate the pain and the attachment to the stories as the dross, right? In an alchemical process, removing that as the dross, and purify and bring forward that which is going to serve me and the one in the future, moving ahead now. Another good reflection would be to consider the Fool card in the Tarot, Torah. The Fool is that consciousness of absolute faith and trust, that no doubt consciousness. How can I see that I am that fool? How can I activate that archetype within me as I read Genesis, as I read Bereshit, the story of creation all over again? And with that comes the understanding that, you know what? I can't be afraid of the journey ahead. There are always going to be mistakes. So am I not going to take the first step because I'm afraid? Of course not. I trust in the plan. I know and trust that Eve ate that apple for a reason. It's metaphorical. It's explaining an inevitable part of the process. That if we want to start the journey, we have to take it into our own hands. We have to initiate it. Without being afraid, we need to jump in. In fact, and I'll take you with me, I would love, I'm getting the feeling to do this, I would love to read from my book a little bit about the Fool as we embark on this new journey, beginning the story of creation all over again. Let's see what we can get out of the Fool. So at the end of every chapter in my book, I give a little summary of the realizations that we should have secured now that we've activated this archetype. And so with the Fool, now that we have solidified a relationship with the Fool inside, these are the realizations we should have secured. We are always connected to Source. This Source is one of unlimited power and potential, right? And this sounds familiar to me. thinking about the Garden of Eden in Genesis and thinking about how, don't eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And then they did. And now they have all this information. Oh, now I'm aware that this source is one of unlimited power and potential, right? So let's continue. There is a divine order in all things. Projecting a future of positivity is key. Our inner resources are all that we need on the royal path. That's an interesting one, right? It's like, it's all within us, so then why did we eat the apple? Good reflections, right? We are here to activate our inner resources, which are ever available to us. The collaborative wisdom of the archetypes within the story of the Tarot or Torah act as a complete system of guidance. We have all the archetypes within us that we need to embark on this journey ahead, right? And I just want to stop there for a second, thinking about Genesis and the creation story as we're moving ahead, right? Starting with these original archetypes of Adam and Eve. Now we go on to be reminded by the Fool that we have all of the archetypes that we're going to need on our journey ahead as we eat that apple and as our minds open up to all the information out there. May we simultaneously remember that we have all of the different angles of the mind to be able to perceive that information and deal with it appropriately in a way that's for the highest good of the one. Our relationship with these archetypes inside allows us to merge with their qualities, bringing our beingness into harmonious resonance with any of their frequencies at our will. Again, meaning that this heady wording simply means that we should know as we begin this creation story all over again, as we walk the path, we will know when and where to activate a specific archetype within us, which angle of awareness to look at our lives through. If our intentions be less than what is required for the sake of the highest good, our channel to source, our channel of power and inspiration will be limited. So that's another thing. Don't be afraid, okay, that it's like now we ate the apple and now we're all powerful. Oh man, like what if I do evil things with it? What if the power gets to me? What if I get in over my head? Impossible. Because as you move more into a selfish frequency or as you move more into a self-serving frequency, that power is limited. The divine design is so brilliant, so intelligent, so profound that you don't even ever have to worry that you will misuse this power, because even if you do, in hindsight, the mistakes will be lessons and blessings for the one. All that's born of evil, all that's born of that space of being in a self-serving frequency cannot travel past this body, past this life. It doesn't go with us beyond the grave, so have no fear. We are one with the universal mind of all creation. Our inner light, as it's connected to the Fool, is always present and available to assist us in all pursuits on the royal path. This inherent wisdom is eager to support us in staying on the highest path as we journey through the processes of life. So I just think the Fool is such an appropriate archetype to sit with as we read Genesis, as we read Bereshit, this Parsha. And I'm thinking also of the magician, because the magician is connected to the letter Aleph, which is the very first letter of the alphabet, the Hebrew alphabet. Now, the Torah starts with the letter B, Bereshit, Bet. It doesn't start with Aleph because Aleph is can be seen as like the hidden element, the one. And we start with the two because we're talking about life, the world of creation, duality, polarity. And so the Torah begins with Bet, two, not one, because one is the one behind the Bet anyway. The one is the one behind all things. So I say that in that sense, it's really wise to consider these three archetypes: the Fool, the Magician, and the High Priestess as we're starting Bereshit. Why? Because the Fool is the one that we see everything else through. We need that Fool consciousness as a foundation. Then we go into the Magician that reminds us of what we are to do with that Fool's consciousness. What do we even do with it? The Magician is the active purpose. The Magician is the one who goes, okay, now that I've got the Fool archetype down and I understand that I'm connected to this source, etc., now I know what to do with it. I'm here to bring that light into the world of creation, right? So that's a very important archetype as well. As we read Genesis, we remember our purpose and why we're even here, created in this universe. And then, of course, the high priestess is connected to the letter Bet, which is the first letter of the Torah. So you want to consider her as well, and how the high priestess is the archetype who contains the mother and father within. She's the one that maintains that balance. She is the gatekeeper for all the thoughts that come in and all the thoughts that go out. And so obviously that's a really important one to consider during this time of Bereshit, Bet, and creation. You know, what is this creation? The Bet has to do with the house that houses the Holy One. Well, that's what we are in these bodies. This body is the house for the two within you, the Mother, Father, God, the masculine and feminine forces of polarity, the active and receptive forces of polarity. You are the keeper of those. You are the house for those energies. Just like this world is a house for those energies. So you can see how these three archetypes, the Fool, the Magician, and the High Priestess, are very helpful right now as we read the story of creation all over again and remember who we are, why we're here. Who are we? Well, in consideration of those three archetypes, we are beings of light that are connected to Source. That's the Fool. We are here with a purpose. That's the Magician. We are here housing these spirits. That's the High Priestess. These are three amazing archetypes to activate and fully embody right now as we begin the story of Bereshit. And just to continue a little more with the realizations that we've secured, I want to read a few more, moving on to the Magician. And as I read these, think about Genesis and creation. Are these realizations not so important as we read this story of creation all over again? We are made of the very elements which are our personal creative tools. We are one with the forces which we work with. We're one with the elements. Is that not important information to remember as we recall the story of creation in Genesis? The energy we use to create is borrowed from an infinite source. Again, super important and relative. The more wisely and compassionately we learn to channel source power, the more we gain access to it. Again, super important as we embark on this creative journey to remember where our energy is coming from, where we just came from, and how to stay connected to it so that we can be the best creators we can be. We must direct our free will to be in alignment with the will of the divine. Right, remembering our purpose, why we came here. Stay connected to divine will. When we resist alignment with the will of the divine, we resist our own natural flow of energy. When we align our being with universal truth, we are in harmony with all. When we align our being with universal law, we are entrusted with an enormous power to perform great miracles. These are all really important things to remember as we read the creation story all over again. Same thing with the High Priestess. All things begin within. Perfect for Genesis. We must look inside of ourselves to find the truth as it wishes to be acknowledged, refined, and expressed. As within, so without. We must be accepting of the truth that in order for balance to be actualized in the material world, balance must first be acquired internally. If there is an outer limitation, we must seek the inner limitation to transcend it. So these are all really helpful realizations to meditate on as we enter this journey of beginning the Torah all over again. And there's always a specific archetype that is the priority focus for any given moment, or maybe a combination of archetypes. And in my opinion, it's great to circle through the whole wheel of archetypes continuously so that we form ever deeper bonds with them so that they can continue to work for us and so we can continue to work for them. It's an alliance, activating the archetypal alliance within. There's a reason I'm so passionate about this. I believe that the wheel of the tarot reflects the wheel of the Torah, and I'm bringing this into this video right now because this is the time of year where we end and begin again. That's why this the title of this video has 2 parshas in it, because this week we read both. We end and begin again right away. It's a circle, it's a cycle. The Torah is a circle, just like the tarot is a circle. Look at the art on the wheel card, Arcanum 10. If you reconfigure the letters of tarot, you get Torah, Ora, Trota, to tell, rotate, to tell the never-ending story of law and magic. And so circling through the archetypes and forming ever deeper bonds with them is just like circling through the wisdom of the Torah and forming ever deeper bonds with the wisdom therein, the archetypal wisdom therein. And we don't have to just do it, on Shabbat. The whole point of having Shabbat once a week is so that we can eventually enter the land of Shabbat, where every moment we're living that truth. And so for me, I found that digging into the royal path, the tarot, is a way of accessing that consciousness. So if you want to know more, reach out. Let me know if you want to order my book. Be happy to send it to you. I also have book 2 now, so if you want to know more about that one as well, let me know. And I'm happy to answer any questions. And enjoy this beautiful time of the year where we knot the end to the beginning, and we remember that the way in which we honor the ending is the way in which we will prepare the soil for the new garden, the new beginning, the new Eden. How can you honor the ending so that you can just as deeply honor the new beginning? The better you close up the last chapter, the more you can be prepared for the new. And with that said, we have the new moon coming up in a few days. I believe it's Monday or Tuesday. I have to double check. And I'll be going live for the activation on my wall. So I hope you all check it out. And really just sitting with that energy as we read Bereshit, the Shabbat. It's going to prepare us for this upcoming new moon. It's a real big new beginning. Love to hear from you guys in our private group on Facebook, Shabbat Crew. Let me know what endings are happening for you in your life and what beginnings are you entering now in a big way. Please feel free to open up dialogue, conversations with our community, and know that this video is going to be loaded to YouTube, youtube.com/RebeccaMagic, as well as Rebecca Magic on Instagram. So you can share with those people who don't have one platform but maybe have another, and YouTube is quite easy for anyone to access. And again, if you're watching this and you're not a part of our Shabbat Crew group, please feel free to join us on Facebook, Shabbat Crew, SHABBAT space Crew, CREW. Love you guys. Shabbat Shalom. I'll see you also tonight for the candle lighting. And if you want to learn the candle lighting prayer so that you can sing along with the ancient melody, just go ahead and Google Shabbat candle lighting prayer melody. There's karaoke, I love that word, karaoke on YouTube, where you can learn the ancient melody, and it's super cool. If you can sing along, I would love it. We have had a couple people now share videos and recordings of them doing the song, the prayer. If you would be happy to do that for us, we'd be so happy to receive it. We're like waiting for more videos of people singing the prayer. It's so beautiful. And remember, it's a code. It's an ancient melody. It's so powerful. So if you can learn it and sing along, please do. All right, you guys, have a meaningful Shabbat. Love you.